Welcome back to Rides and Drives Team Radio. I am Kaz. I'm here with my father, Harvey, who just got back from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where he saw the very first open test of the IR-28 IndyCar's new chassis coming in, of course, 2028. Harvey, tell me all about, okay, I mean, tell me all about your day. Yes.
Well, my day started at 4 a.m. when I got out
Yeah.
of bed and got into the car and drove 5 hours to Indianapolis so I could be there for the test, which was supposed to start at 11.
Hmm.
It didn't start at 11 because it was raining in Indianapolis today, and we were
Got
all
some hard
worried.
rain.
Yeah, we were all worried we weren't going to see any running for a little
Hmm.
while with Alex. Obviously, Alex Rossi drove it yesterday and got to put in like 36 laps. So that was the first on track. But unfortunately, I couldn't get down there yesterday. I could get there today. So I got to see Alex Palou drive the car for 35 laps. So yeah, it was a great day. And then at when the test ended at 2 because they had a hard stop at 2 that needed to turn the track over to someone else. Um, I got in the car and drove home. So I've drove 10 and a half hours to see about an hour and a half of IndyCar going around the track.
35 laps, not, but it's a really good driver putting those 35 in. So let's start at the top. I know that you didn't just get the chance to watch the car, but you also were able to talk to a number of people today. And I know that you got some insight about what the people from IndyCar were hoping that this test would accomplish. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a great place for us to start when we talk about the test.
Before we do that, I just want to say the car looks freaking awesome
Great.
in person. It looks
Great.
better in person than the renderings did. The renderings were still renderings. These, I got to see the actual car. I got a lot of pictures of it. I put a bunch on my social medias. So go to Harvey_drives and you'll see a few pictures and some video of the car in action. But yeah, the car looks great. So we'll get that out of the way. Now let's talk about the test and what it was for.
Yeah.
Um, and this is the first time the car has been on track. They did not do a super secret pre-test or
They
anything
confirmed
like
that
that.
there
They
was
confirmed
no,
there was
wow.
no, this was the first time the car has been on track. So they
Huh.
ran it in the road course configuration on the Indy Road Course.
Okay.
Um, both days, it only ran in wet conditions. Alex tried 3 times to run the car with slicks on it and couldn't make it work given the conditions today.
Alex Palou. Okay.
Hello, yeah,
Today.
and
You can't just say
yeah.
Alex.
Sorry, yeah, it's Alex 1, Alex 2, right? 3 times today they tried to run it with slicks. They couldn't make them work. They didn't have enough cars going around the track to dry the track.
Yeah.
So even when it like the drizzle slowed way down, where in race conditions you might have been able to, they couldn't do that today. But that really didn't matter. We talked to Alex, we talked to Mike O'Gara, the VP of competition and race engineering at IndyCar. And the whole idea of this test is to see if the car in real life produces numbers similar to what they saw in simulations and wind tunnel testing. So,
Okay.
what kind of downforce did they get? What was the brake balance and bias, front rear? What was, the how was the traction coming out of corners, things like that. And while yes, it was a wet track, they still got a lot of good data. They said that they'll be able to use to confirm that their calculations translate to real life because that's
Well,
really important.
yeah. I mean, look, my husband is a astronomer and astrophysicist, and he works with theorists. And
Mhm.
they love telling him exactly how space gas works, but he's the one who observes it. And he's the one who actually says, hey guys, not always though. This is that. This is, and
Yeah,
you can simulate for wet track conditions.
right.
So, essentially, that's exactly right. What we're doing is we're comparing our theories to what we see on track. And what did they have to say about how those comparisons went? How do they, where do they think we are right now?
They think we're in great shape. First of
Ah,
all,
love to hear it.
they said uh, both Alexander Rossi and Alex Palou had very similar feedback about the car, how it felt, and how it performed,
Great.
which Mike said was great because if they had come back and Rossi had said, "Oh, it really needs more front brake bias," and Alex came back and said, "You know what? I feel like it needs more rear brake bias," that would have been a disaster,
Sure.
right? Because they wouldn't have clear direction. But so they felt that they got a lot of good information from both drivers. They have a lot of good data in the computers. There were only two minor technical glitches that happened to the car during this, and we're testing new transmission, new dampers, new
Hmm.
brakes, all of that stuff. Obviously, the whole new chassis, and to only have two minor problems that didn't stop the test. They were just things that, made were annoyances more than anything else.
Sure.
So Mike O'Gara, who has done a number of cars, not just Indy cars, he did work on the DW12 and saw that through. He worked with Ganassi's IMSA prototype program. He
Hmm.
worked on the Ford GT launch, getting that car ready for racing. He said this is the best first on track experience he's ever had with a new race car.
Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah. And, I mean, obviously they're going to say good things. No one's going to come
Sure.
out and say, oh my God, this thing was terrible. It didn't perform how we thought at all and all. But,
But
but
no
he
one
was
told you you had to say this is the best first day I've
right.
ever had. I
And
mean, if you're a little, oh, it's not feeling exactly where we want to be. That's not the language you're using. You're
well,
just saying like, yes, we're learning a lot and it's been a successful test.
and that was one of the things. I think it was David Land who asked him, what did what were things that didn't go the way were there things that didn't go as you had expected, and what are they? And he said,
Mhm.
well, there are always things that don't go as expected, and I'm not going to tell you. He
Of
said,
course not.
we'll keep that secret for now because we have this is the first on track and we have a lot of development to do. But basically, what they were doing with these 2 days was gathering data so the engineers can go to work over the next 6 weeks because the car's not going to see the track again until the season is over because all the teams are busy now.
Yeah.
We have 6 races coming up in 5 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, I
So,
can't be too mad about a break in testing when it
right,
means the final six races of the season. And hey, it gives us something to look forward to as well
right.
once we sign off on at the end of Laguna
But
Seca.
we did get confirmation that it will run in oval trim at IMS this fall. So, um,
Yes. Oh, that's gonna be
we'll
cool
definitely get down there
looking.
for that. So,
Certainly will. I can't wait to see that. That's going to be something spectacular. Yeah,
yeah,
I've had a great time chatting with IndyCar fans about the new chassis over the last couple of days. Where I live in Bloomington, Indiana, we had a festival this weekend, and I had the opportunity to talk to a bunch of people. And I think just across the board, fans are really excited about
yeah,
what we're seeing, and I'm so happy that the first test went successfully, that it continues to feel like we're on the right track here.
yeah. I mean, two things I think that are important about this test. First of all, they weren't running the new engine. right?
Hmm.
They took an old 2.4 liter turbocharged engine, no hybrid system. They didn't want that complexity in this test,
Sure.
just because all they want to do is focus on the chassis, the suspension components, the aero, and make sure that's all working.
Hmm.
So they can do that without the new engine. So we got that started, and that was a good process. Both Alexander Rossi and Alex Palou had a lot of good and similar things to say about their experience driving the car.
I think
Um,
that's interesting because their driving styles are, I mean, they're not incredibly similar as drivers. So
right.
it's interesting that they would come back with the same feedback from the same vehicle.
Yeah, very similar. They talked about how you can definitely feel the 100-pound lighter car.
Great.
That it just it he's Alex said it's so much more responsive. You can really tell that not only is it lighter, but it's lighter in the right places. So
Okay.
it just, the center of gravity is lower because of the way they've integrated the aero screen now. So that drops the center of gravity down. The wider side pods, that all helps that. So, I mean, he got out in the car and probably his second lap out, I watched him go down the front straight and he was busting it. He said, I felt very confident in the car right away. And the other thing he commented about was how roomy it is in the
Sure.
cockpit with
I
the
Yeah,
new.
IndyCar bragged about that.
He said it's like going from a mainstream compact car to a luxury car, which
Oh,
I thought was pretty funny. Yeah, he just said it feels, he actually used the word plush, and then he said, but that's wrong because it's still a race
because it's
car.
still an
And
open wheel race car and
right,
there's no such thing as a plush open wheel
right.
race car.
But
That's
it was
very
pretty
funny.
funny.
In comparison, though.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about essentially, yeah, they made a ton of upgrades to the DW12, but in 14 years, things change a lot, and so it's not surprising that this car feels a ton better.
That
So
is
we'll see.
that is such fantastic news.
The
Harvey, yeah, what else comes to mind when you think about your day today?
Well, one of the things that um, someone asked Alex about was there are rumors that they're thinking about putting power steering in the car,
Okay.
in the new car. And Alex is like, you know what? If someone needs it because they have a bad hand or, they need some assistance, fine. He said, I don't want it. I like feeling every pebble. I like feeling every crack. I like knowing, where my tires are in relation to the pavement. He says it's not that hard to drive without power steering. So, um,
Sure, Alex.
but it makes you work. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so I thought that was an interesting tidbit that we heard today as well. Just being around, you pick stuff up, which is great.
that's an interesting notion. I mean, certainly there are drivers driving with wrist and hand injuries and
Right.
but there isn't power steering and it goes. I agree with Alex. Keep it the way it is. It's great. Nobody has any problems.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm, I, I prefer a race car without power steering, especially one as light as that. I would think you would, as a driver, you would want as much communication between your hands and the pavement as possible.
Yeah,
And power steering takes some of that away.
absolutely.
So,
All right, so that's kind of a fun little tidbit that maybe they're talking about adding power steering as a rumor. Who knows? Any other little pieces of information you picked up today that we might not have seen in the press release?
Yeah, I talked to the guys from Firestone.
Hmm.
Tire sizes will be unchanged when we move from the 27 car to the 28, but obviously with different downforce, different weight, they're going to have to play with tire compounds. The other thing that I thought was interesting today was at the end, I asked Mike O'Gara if anything surprised him in a good or bad way about what he saw today. And he said the
Hmm.
biggest surprise is the car is faster than he thought it would be.
Ooh, okay.
So he was very happy with the speeds they were able to get this weekend on the test. It exceeded his expectations of where they would be with the car at this point. So, um,
That's a really fun answer to that question because, again, he didn't have to say that.
right.
What surprised you today? It's very, very easy to give a generic answer. They've absolutely been, just every piece of marketing I've seen for this has been all about the speed.
Right.
So I think it's it's a bold statement to stand up there and say, yeah, not only did we achieve what we've talked about, but I think it's going to be faster. Um, that's a pretty cool thing to hear,
Yeah.
especially as an answer to an open-ended question.
And before Mike had spoke, Alex said, and this is a direct quote, I think we're going to break some records with this car.
I mean,
So,
it's designed to do so, and we clearly have the capability and technology to break a record from 1994. Not that it's not a great record. I'm just saying, if we had wanted to do this 5 years ago, we could have, and
but
we're
still,
looking to do it now. But it's great to hear that they're on the right track.
we're talking about a 4 lap average of 237 miles an hour at the
It's
Indianapolis.
crazy
So that's a
fast.
huge leap from this year's qualifying.
I
So,
think that's something that is also important to note is that at the time, we didn't have a boost for qualifying. So
right.
there were actually laps during the race at that same speed. Um, that's or at the very least close to that same speed.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. So I don't know.
In
I'm
cars that
expecting
in cars that weren't as safe as they
in
are
cars that were
today too.
nowhere near as safe. So
So,
I'm expecting we will still get a boost for qualifying and then back to a race setup. But
yeah. The other thing I asked Alex about was about what he expected the hybrid system to be.
okay.
Again, they aren't running the new engine today. They, he just knows that, yeah, we're going to have a bigger battery. We're going to have more deployment. There's going to be more power in the hybrid system. He said right now, he said everybody uses the hybrid the same way. And we've talked
Mhm.
about this. The
Yeah.
way the current hybrid system is set up, there's only one way you can use it. So it doesn't, and he said it doesn't give anybody an advantage. But
In
this,
particular, once whenever there's a new track on the calendar, there's always a little bit to play with. But once we've started, I mean, we've
yeah.
been to the same tracks with the hybrid over and over, and everybody knows exactly where to deploy, and it is a little tedious.
So we'll see what happens at Markham and
Yeah,
DC if
it
there's
does make
anything
new
different,
tracks exciting.
But yeah, Alex said this is going to be great because it's going to really make it more strategic and allow people to use the hybrid to their advantage, not an advantage, like
Sure.
everyone. So, if someone like David Malukas drives completely differently than Alex, he may use the hybrid differently and just as successfully now.
And if your strategy is fuel save, you can
Right.
utilize the hybrid in a way that helps you fuel save. And if your
Yeah.
strategy is an
Yeah.
undercut, you can utilize that. Yeah, there are a whole lot of different there are a whole lot of different things that we've talked about wanting them to be able to do with the hybrid. So this
Yeah.
is really exciting. Anytime you can add an additional strategic element or complicate the strategy in a way that makes you think harder about the
Yes.
race,
And
that's what I want.
the thing I also like about it, it does it in a way and we'll see how this plays out, but it doesn't seem like it's going to get in the way of racing,
Yes.
right? Where it
Yeah,
just
you don't
becomes a
want little
complication.
manufactured like, oh,
Right,
okay, now you have to push the button right at this time. Yeah, we don't
right.
want drama for the sake of it, but an additional piece that if you can figure out how to use it right gives you extra speed.
Alex
I
said
like
he's
that.
Alex said he's just going to press the button all the time anyway. So
That's
he
Alex for
the
you.
other thing he talked about was how nice it was to have the weight jackers, the bar adjustments on the
Yep.
steering wheel. He said
As levers
that's
instead of,
super
yeah,
nice. It's going to be much easier to make those adjustments on the fly.
that's great. When you read, okay, they're changing a pretty well used component from a lever to a button. You're always
Hmm.
like, ooh, how are you going to do with the new controller, kiddo? I don't know. It makes you a little nervous, but I have to
Yeah,
remind myself that these guys have probably seen 100 different steering wheels in all of their lives, and they're
yeah, they've
excellent
driven
at
tons.
whatever video game controller you want to put in front of them. They know where the buttons are. It's okay.
Yeah, they've driven tons of cars besides Indy cars.
Hmm.
I mean, Alex came up through European Formula racing, so he's seen a lot of other things. One thing I did learn about the damper packages is
Great.
they will have um, standard damper packages for each track, but there's a ton of adjustability within that.
Okay, great.
So, the teams will be able to really personalize the damper package for each driver.
Great. So while you do have to purchase from Roger, he
Hmm.
doesn't care what you do with the product after you pay for it.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I mean, within
yeah,
regulation, of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So lots of good stuff today. It was so great. I mean, just to hear the car start up, have them
Yeah, I do.
roll it
I do
out of
have
the
one. What
garage.
does it sound like? How does
Well,
it how does it sound?
it
Oh, it's not the right
yeah,
engine.
it's not
It
the
doesn't
real
matter.
engine, so
Not the right engine anyway. It doesn't matter.
but you know what? Hearing a V6 engine screaming down the front straight with no one in the stands and just the echoing around the Indy Motor Speedway was great. I mean,
That is pretty wacky.
and it was, as always when I'm there, to just go stand on the yard of bricks and think about all the people who've crossed that yard, and just be in that special place, and to be able to be there with just a dozen other reporters, and
Hmm.
really get a lot of good quality time with Alex, with Mike O'Gara, people from Firestone. There were reps from every team there seeing what was going on, so it wasn't oh, Alex's team is there and Rossi's team is there, and no, there was a representative from every team there. So we got to really, spend some time with people. And it was fun to chat with, Marshall Pruitt and David Land and those guys
Oh,
as
of
well.
course, always is.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, really good day. I wish it had been sunny because I would have liked to have seen what Alex could do with the slick tires on the car. He did say, he said he said, I can tell there's a ton more downforce and the car has a really great balance.
This is as a fan, I can't think of how this test could have gone better.
Right. No, I agree with you. I, 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 I think we got everything we wanted out of it.
Hmm.
And again, Alex said, he said it's going to be really hard to go back to the old car now. But not that it's not a good car, but
Give me the new chassis.
now I know what we're going to have. And Mike O'Gara said, look, if I feel really good about this, and if it weren't for manufacturing and ramping up and the time it takes to get that right, we could race this car next year. So,
Yay.
we'll get a lot more feedback after the season. The teams will
Hmm.
have the car next year to test all season long, so we'll learn a lot more about it. But for now, we get to put this to bed and we get to turn our attention to Portland for the next week. And
That's
then
right.
Portland, then Markham, then DC, then Milwaukee, and then Laguna Seca for the end of the season.
That's right. And this stretch of races is, I mean, Markham is new. We don't know. DC is new. We don't know. But Portland, Milwaukee, Laguna Seca, man, racing doesn't really get a whole lot better than this. So much looking forward to talking about Portland with you. An absolutely beautiful track with a ton of history, and of course, a lot of great strategy going into determining who's going to win that race year after year after year.
Yep.
So, while we do not have the beautiful IR-28 on track in front of us for race day yet, we get to enjoy a last season and a third of the DW12, which has been a car that has served us so well. So,
Mhm.
I'm just going to take a moment to enjoy what they've given us thus far and, continue to look forward to the future.
That's great. So again, if you want to see any pictures of the actual IR-28, check out our social medias, Harvey underscore drives or at Fast Car Kaz and Rides and Drives Team Radio. We'll put pictures all over those things now that I'm back. And yeah, we'll go from there. So for Rides and Drives Team Radio, I'm Harvey, she's Kaz, and we're out.
Drive safe, everybody.